Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Urcha Kwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is the Mayim in Atlanta, and this is the book of Psalms, chapter 55 and verse 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. This is speaking of the Edomites. The Edomites are so-called white people, including the small hatters. And they've been able to skate through life by blaming their evil onto others. When they get caught doing something or something's brought up about the evil in which they've done, they do a really good job of deflecting it off of themselves. And it's so strong, they've done it so much that there's a colloquial term called whataboutism. You talk about the annihilation of the Native Americans, and they'll say something like, well, what about Pol Pot, or what about the Russians, or what about anybody? They always deflect and put things off. You can never just talk about their evil and the things they've done. They want to bring up other instances, but they are the ultimate evil. They're the Edomites of the Bible, making them the worst. They are the villain, and they've been able to use their smooth words, their talking points, to get out of trouble for a very long time. But we're coming into the time, and are in the time to where they're being called out, and they're not being able to escape it, especially with what's going on within the White House right now and these Epstein files and all that stuff. There's just been a bunch of deflecting. Trump has been deflecting almost everything. And then it even comes out to where they're pushing topics out into the news because of their deflection. I saw that they were talking about releasing documents on so-called UFOs or UAPs, disclosure, all to get away from these Epstein files. Trump also pulled up MLK and had the MLK files released just a few days ago, and he's talking about bringing Obama up for treason. And these are all just forms of deflection. So I typed into Google Trump deflection to MLK and Obama, in which I'm not defending either of those men at all, but this is deflection. He's deflecting, trying to make you look in other directions so that they could sweep all this stuff under the rug. But from the AI overview, it says several reports indicate that former President Trump, not sure why it's saying former when he's the current president, even though he is a former president, but I think it would say current. Maybe this is telling us something about the future. But it says several reports indicate that former President Trump has recently made comments referencing Martin Luther King Jr. and Barack Obama, often in the context of deflecting criticism or making controversial comparisons. Regarding MLK, August of 2024, Trump compared the crowd size at his January 6th Stop the Steal rally to the crowd at King's I Have a Dream speech, claiming his crowd was larger. January 2025, Trump claimed his presidency would make King's dream come true. And this guy's a megalomaniac. And all he does is think about himself and he thinks he's the greatest of all time. But Yahweh Shai is about to show him what's up. Next one, the Trump administration released records related to King's assassination in July of 2025, despite objections from King's family. And so he released this just after the Epstein files, which we know he was asked about him, and he was like, "Oh, why does everybody keep talking about this guy who's been dead for years, blah blah blah," but and have been deflecting off of that for a bit, and it's because he's most likely within those files, and so he's trying to draw people's attention away from that. And so they're even talking about UFO declassification or revealing that stuff. And then he's doing it with Obama as well. And so, in which he's trying to bring Obama up into an investigation for treason. It says in July of 2025, Trump repeatedly accused Obama of treason in connection with the Russia investigation and alleged efforts to undermine his 2016 victory. And it's so funny with Obama because back when Obama was the president, and even Trump's first term, they blamed everything on Obama. It's Obama. Not even sticking up for Obama, but that's what was happening. But since Trump repeatedly accused Obama of treason in connection with the Russia investigation and alleged efforts to undermine his 2016 victory, these accusations were made in response to a declassified intelligence memo released by DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Critics, including an Obama spokesperson, dismissed these claims as outrageous, bizarre, and a weak attempt at distraction. Because that's what he's doing. He's trying to distract from the fact that he's most likely on those files. There's way too much evidence of him hanging out with the guy and them speaking together. And there's even a old tape of Epstein talking about how, or being asked a question whether he's ever partied with Trump and underage girls at the same time, and he pleaded the fifth. This guy's most likely on those files. It says, it is important to note that Trump's statements about both King and Obama have been met with criticism and counter-arguments, with many observers questioning their accuracy and appropriateness. Yeah, you see it being spoke of in these articles, but let's get that word deflect. And so this is from the Etamon Online. Deflect, cause to turn aside. And so we've got to go straight to a scripture from there, which is Isaiah 29 and verse 23, I believe. Isaiah 29 and verse 21. It says that make a man an offender for a word, and lay aside a snare, and lay a snare for him that reproveth in the gate, and turn aside the just for a thing of naught. So deflect the just, the righteous. And this is something that is really on the horizon, considering the famine of the word is a prophecy that still has to happen, to where they make telling the truth and speaking about these small hatters, they're going to make that against the law, to make a man an offender for the word, for this truth, and lay a snare, a trap for him that reproveth in the gate, and turn aside the just for a thing of naught. So deflecting the just, when the just, the righteous, the Israelites, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, including, are scattered. We just want justice, which we're not going to get under the wicked, under this man, under the devil that is in power. So we've got to turn to Yahweh Bashem Awashai. Verse 22, therefore, thus saith the Lord, who redeemed Abraham concerning the house of Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Jacob shall not now be ashamed, neither shall his face now wax pale. Because the Lord is going to lift us up out of this low state that we're in and give us beauty for ashes. And it will also be known at that point that the Edomites, the so called white people and small hatters, are just liars. They are the devil, they are the wicked of the scriptures. And there they have a big, huge price to pay for all of this wickedness. I also want to go to the word whataboutism. And so this is just from Google AI. It says whataboutism is actually Slovakia. Didn't finish with this word deflect. So cause to turn aside, from Latin to bend aside or downward, away, to bend, of uncertain origin, sense of to turn away or aside. And so they'll get someone accusing them or bringing up something, and they will turn that accusation aside and point out something else. They deflect. And so, got whataboutism from AI Overview is a rhetorical tactic used to deflect criticism or avoid addressing an accusation by bringing up a similar or worse action committed by someone else, often the accuser. And the Edomites are running out of ways to deflect. They're running out of whataboutisms because they're under the microscope. People are looking at them because, truthfully, they're the problem of this whole earth. It says it's a form of red herring that attempts to undermine the validity of the initial criticism by shifting the focus to a different, unrelated issue. Essentially, it's a way to say, but what about blank, in response to a claim, often with the goal of muddying the waters and distracting from the original point. So it's a tactic in which they use. So whataboutism from Urban Dictionary. It says when you deflect criticism by pointing out flaws in your opponent, specifically using the phrase, what about X? This is an attempt to excuse you from changing your behavior by painting your opponent as a hypocrite. Like the idea of, what about how you guys slaughtered the natives? And I'll be like, well, what about how they were slaughtering themselves before we came over here? All these things, all these whataboutisms. So the example is, why are you always telling me to clean my room? What about your room? Or up. Starts with a dad. Son, you haven't cleaned your room in 2 years. Please clean it up. Son, why are you always telling me to clean my room? What about your room? Or what about your relation with mom? Shouldn't you be the one cleaning up your life? Dad, quit your whataboutism and clean your damn room. I'm tired of seeing that dead rat over there in the corner. Here's another. Why is China G-siding Uyghurs? Tanky, her door, Native Americans, Guantanamo Bay. Person 1, quit your whataboutism. And this is usually flipped around because it's dealing with Esau. So bring up the Native Americans and they'll bring up China or bring up something else. Another one, U.S. propagandist. This is an evil man because he has tortured people. Concerned citizen. What about U.S. torturing people in Guantanamo Bay? U.S. propagandist. What aboutism? But yeah, you get the point. They deflect and bring up other instances instead of just addressing the problem. And usually, when they deflect onto Jacob, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Esau's the most violent people in this country, but they'll show us, the so-called Negroes, as being the most violent. They'll show all of our instances, even though they're dropping off weapons into our neighborhoods for this to happen and stirring up the pot, forming gangs and stuff for this to happen. And even with drugs, they'll bring drugs in and have that going on for us to be more violent. The reason that so-called Negroes are violent is because they followed after their father, the devil, Esau, Edom. The people of the world are like they are because the wicked are bearing rule. As the king, so are the people. And so you see all this violence and theft and lies. It's because you have a violent thief and liar over the people. It's because of them. Psalms 50 and verse 19. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. They put a lot of their deflection onto Jacob, in which Jacob and Esau were brothers. So it's speaking of Jacob and Esau and how Esau deflects onto Jacob. Slander, the accuser of our brethren. They put a lot of their evil off onto us, and the world believes it, but the world is slowly starting to wake up. Another non-verbal way that they deflect is through the use of Christianity. And so this is Psalms 50 and verse 17. But unto the wicked the Most High saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee? He did this because it makes them seem like the morally superior people, like they are the true Christians, and they are actually the Lord's people, those small hatters, but they're anything but. They're hated of the Lord because they're low enough to even do something like this. They stole our heritage. They enslaved us. They stole our heritage and are parading around the earth like they are the Lord's people. All of Judeo-Christianity. When it's nothing to do with the Bible. They don't know prophecy. They've changed it all around. They tell people the laws are done away with. And they've changed all the images to resemble themselves, their iconoclasm or their whitewashing. And this has made people give them the benefit of the doubt, even though they're the criminal. They are the criminal. Even criminal comes from crimson, which crimson's a form of red, and the Edomites were described as red. This is the problem of the earth. These darn Edomites. This is 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 3, because they are being revealed. And these whataboutisms and this deflection is not going to work for very much longer. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. So the Israelites fell away from their heritage and knowledge of who they are. And that man of sin be revealed. That man of sin are the Edomites, all of the progeny of Esau himself, through the father's seed, the son of perdition, the son of destruction. And so the Israelites fell away from their heritage, while the Edomites took on the heritage of the Israelites. That's how you get Judeo-Christianity. Christianity is really just Esau's version of the scriptures, but it's being made known and seen, starting with the apostles and elders of the great millstone, that it's all a lie. They celebrate pagan holidays and call them a false name, have a false doctrine, say the laws are done away with. It's a lie. All they do is lie and deflect. 2 Thessalonians 2 and jumping down to verse 6. And now we know that withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. The deflection is not working, and they're being revealed as being extremely wicked people. The racism is showing everywhere, especially with these deportations that are happening, to where it's just targeting the Israelites, especially the northern kingdom, but they're targeting southern kingdom as well now. and it's just going to grow and grow because this devil has but a short time. He's got just a little more time, and so he's coming down with that great wrath, and it's going to heat up because we still have to have Jacob's trouble. All these prophecies have to come to pass for the kingdom to manifest. This is the book of Micah 2 and verse 3. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil. Evil being bad times, that family, in this case being the Edomites, because this was originally speaking to the southern kingdom, but the Edomites have taken this book onto themselves. We just read it in Psalms 50 and verse 16. And so everything's going to apply to them. All the laws, they're going to be judged on every single law within the book. Behold, against this family, the Edomites, do I devise an evil, these bad times that are coming. And this is a time of trouble such as never been before the world began. Throughout all of history, this is going to take them out. It says, from which ye shall not remove your necks. So you won't be able to speak your smooth words. They won't be able to deflect or pull any of their whataboutisms. They're going to be taken down. It says, neither shall ye go haughtily, proudly, for this time is evil. You're going to be completely pulled down. You're going into slavery, Esau. You're not going to be able to throw out any whataboutisms because the elect of Israel will be seen as innocent in all of this. And then the other whataboutisms that you could pull, the other nations, they're going into slavery with you. You're not going to be able to get out of this. This is a bad time for you. Very bad time for you. And it's coming. Man of sin is being revealed. Their words are losing its power. Their wisdom is vanishing. The veil that they've put over themselves as being morally upright is disappearing, tearing. And they're not going to be able to get out of their downfalls. Their NWO is not going to help. They're going down, and there's nothing they can do about it. So, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.